You've known Boris Johnson for many years, right back to his days as a Brussels correspondent for The Telegraph. I know you admire the guy. You've worked with him. You resigned after the Chequers agreement, and then he resigned a few days later. Obviously, you two were in very, very close touch. Him as then Foreign Secretary outgoing, you as outgoing Brexit Secretary. He does have this reputation of being good at talking to crowds, good at sort of jollying people along on the campaign trail and all the rest of it. Does he really get ordinary people? Does he really understand how the majority of British people live, particularly outside the M25?
Well, I think so. I mean, look, he has a celebrity factor. You take him to a marketplace in my constituency, or for that matter in Rotherham, a crowd will gather.
Yeah, people want selfies.
All of that.
First name terms, hello, Boris.
All that stuff. And how many people, how many politicians are known by their first name?
Well, you have to be a pop star, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. So
Madonna, Sting.
He is a sort of pop star. He is a sort of pop star. The difficulty is, look, when you're Prime Minister, things come thick and fast all the time. All the time. It's one of the reasons that political instinct matters. So to take a stark example, Thatcher's political instincts were very clear, very well directed.
So you could almost preempt a decision she was going to make because she had that kind of roadmap, the DNA.
You telegraph to everybody where you're going.
Yeah.
And so they can make, it's true of any leadership. It's true of military leadership. It's true of corporate leadership. The really best leaders sort of emanate direction. Yeah. And what's happened in the last 2 years, and I don't actually blame Boris for this, I mean, other things you might argue about, but what's happened in the last few years is sort of dissipated government. Parliament hasn't actually existed. It's been like it's been like being, sort of going into a sort of parish council in a barn.
Cocktail parties just don't work on Zoom, do they?
now. So, but the point is, if you're a minister and you have to go to the House of Commons normally, not during COVID, but normally, you get nervous. I used to spend my night before questions studying up and knowing my stuff. And I think the quality of government's dissipated. And that affects it all the way from Boris right down to the bottom. And that lack of clear direction is important. He's got to reinstate that. He's got to find that.
Is he going to be Prime Minister this time next year?
Well, my hunch is no. I called on him to resign. The reason I did so was because I was afraid of a death of 1,000 cuts. Tory party is not quite the sort of vicious, ruthless machine of removing leaders that people think it is.
Yeah.
John Major.
Theresa May hung around for a long time.
A long, long time. And I don't want to see a death of 1,000 cuts because, look, the world is in a tense state. Ukraine, more domestically, France and us over the Channel, Taiwan on the horizon.
Chinese belligerents.
All of that. Economic issues coming down the road as well.
And we're fixated on birthday cakes and cheese and wine parties.
We have a very narrow bandwidth. And so, we have to widen that bandwidth by getting out of this.
What happens to your party if you go through with this NIC increase, which was counter to your election manifesto? Could these tax rises lose the Tories their majority?
Yes, in terms, yes. Because once it's happened, you won't get it back. I mean, people have talked. I mean, Rishi describes himself as a low-tax Tory, right? And the sort of story that's gone around, I don't know whether it's what he means, is that there'll be a cut of 1% in income tax just before the election. That won't hack it. If we've penalised them when they're at their toughest, when their personal budgets are at their toughest, they'll remember that for a long time.